Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. So our afternoon session brings us to the Innovation Summit, and that's where the focus starts to shift to startups, technologies, and investments. This is where new ideas meet the people who can make them happen. Capital is moving, and not always where you would expect. Eliza Chu is the CEO of Anchor Global and Anchor Venture Partners. She is kicking off the Innovation Summit with a strategic keynote on how investment is evolving across East and West and where the most meaningful opportunities for cycling and industrial mobility may lie. This keynote is supported by Anchor Global and Anchor Venture Partners. Please join me in welcoming Eliza Chu.
Hello, everyone. How is EUROBIKE 2026? Woo! It's really great to return, and we arrived yesterday. How many of you have already had an opportunity to walk around the trade floor? Quite a lot of you. What do you think? Happy to be here? Actually, more crowded than I expected. Yes? Yes? For those of you who haven't had an opportunity to walk around, this is going to be a great show. And we're really happy to be back to collaborate with our great partners at EUROBIKE again to bring this very important topic to the cycling industry. So for the first 10 minutes or so, or less than that, I'm going to quickly set the stage. I will give you a little bit of information and facts, and basically topics that we will discuss afterwards. Afterwards, we're going to have 2 panels with incredible speakers. And then, after that, the real conversations will begin with 10 table hosts at the networking area where you can actually meet the speakers and basically continue with a lot of further conversations. Sounds good? Yes? All right, let's do it. Well, I guess we don't need to talk too much about the old capital story is over. We all knew that during the pandemic, the boom, the inventory, how the private equity money kind of disappeared-ish from the cycling industry. So we don't need to, I think everybody here knew that already. But here I wanted to maybe give you a little bit something more. While the European PE money might be disappearing from the cycling industry, we're actually seeing something very interesting. I don't know how many of you actually follow the IPO and the public markets in Asia. One thing that we noticed is that, especially from last year, we started seeing more companies, especially those that are embedded with the Asian supply chain, and also those that are savvy enough to connect with Asian capital markets. They now understand that, hey, PE funds, VC funds, not into cycling, but guess what? Maybe there are public investors that we can leverage on. So last year, we saw Dahong, they have a booth over there. They went public in Hong Kong, raised about 50 million. And then in addition to that, we also see Fushida from China. They filed for IPO already, planning to raise about 100 million euros. 10 ways, for those of you in Europe, probably are familiar with that. Relatively new company, but then already they also filed to get listed in Hong Kong and trying to raise in between 90 to 140 million. In addition to that, Tektro, for those who are from Taiwan, you're probably familiar with that. And some other companies from Taiwan, they also have this kind of plans. And what does it mean? If you are from the industry, what should you think about? If you are a startup, what should you think about? So here are some of my observations and maybe things that you can take home with to really ponder. Well, first of all, in the past, a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they think that fundraising, this is for the CFO. And especially a lot of Asian business owners, they don't like outside investors. They're like, no, we don't need that. We're okay. However, now the time is different. Because capital strategy is no longer the CFO's jobs. It is an innovation engine. And why do we say that? Especially during downturn, like in the last couple of years, If you have more capital, doesn't matter where it's from. If you can actually raise from the capital markets, there's actually a lot of innovation capacity that you can continue building, while others might be waiting for the markets to recover. I will use this as an example. And by the way, all of these companies, I am in no way currently affiliated with them, and it's not investment advice or anything, but I'm just using them as an example. This is Fushida. According to their public prospectus for the IPO, they're raising about 100 million euros. Out of that, about 62% they're going to use with their manufacturing and so on and so forth. But more than 27%, which means 27 million euros, they will use with their R&D and innovation capacity. How many cycling companies do you know that has this kind of dry powder for innovation and for R&D? Well, at least for me personally, I don't know that many. But guess what? For the companies that are able to raise money, this is what they can do when everybody else is suffering. In addition to that, they're spending 10%-ish on their branding and also marketing. Again, a lot of dry powder to march forward. So that's why for CEOs, for business owners down there, this is actually something that you need to think about more already. Another thing is ecosystem building is no longer a nice to have. It is a strategic infrastructure. If you only build your company and if you only do it within your industry, you're going to see things too little and too late. That's why you have to come out here at EUROBIKE, at industry events, connect to people, who might be outside of the industry, and see what they're thinking, what they're, doing, and perhaps get some inspiration from them. And what does it mean for startups? If you are raising money and if you still are relatively earlier in your journey, you can perhaps look at, hey, which companies are going listed? Because they might need you to complete their capital market narrative. If you're building something that would make their story more complete and more attractive for the capital markets, guess what? You might be a very good acquisition target. So when you're building startup, passion is important. But these days, we also need to be a little bit smarter in thinking who might be the buyer, who might provide an exit. So when you're raising money, especially when you raise from institutional investors, this is the questions that you need to answer. And another thing, which we will demonstrate also in one of our panels later on, is that a bike investor may not call themselves a bike investor. So the stories can be the same. You're still building, what you're passionate about. But the framing can be very different. And a lot of time, if you only fundraise within the cycling industry, you might feel like, man, the capital is so limited. But when you go outside, actually, a bike company can be a climate company. It can be a safety company. It can be an energy company. It can be urban infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So the company doesn't change, but how you frame the company and whether you get out of the cycling world to get creative in fundraising makes a huge difference. The last thing, at trade shows like this, we talk a lot about products. I know that we're passionate about products. However, now there's a paradigm shift. Product still matters, but in addition to product, it's very important to think about the life cycle economics. And the automotive industry knows it really well. In fact, usually the sale of the car only accounts for 20%-ish of the total gross margin. Usually the sales, the maintenance, the parts, the insurance and finance accounts for, it could be over 70%. So are we capturing that as an industry, or are we actually wasting opportunities there? So with that, hopefully now there's a little bit of food for thoughts, and we're going to probably incorporate some of these points into our discussion afterwards. But are we ready for our two panels here? Yes? Yes? All right. Now we have set the stage, and we have our first panel to actually really talk about with corporates, different corporate, they have different innovation approaches. How do corporates build competitive advantage beyond capital? It's easy to think about, okay, let's have a corporate venture fund. Maybe let's work with a VC fund. Let's build an accelerator. How can corporates these days stay relevant? And also, perhaps, work with outside startups to accelerate that innovation. Our speakers, they are from 3 different models. And today, we're going to hear from them in terms of how they actually do it. So let's welcome the speakers for our first panel onto the stage. First, we will have Penny Huang from Xinbang. Welcome. And then we have Sebastian Grimm from ZF Group, and also the head of Move Plus Accelerator, and David Shu from Decathlon Marketplace. Welcome. Whew. All right. It's a rare-ish combination to have this kind of panel at EUROBIKE, I guess, yes? Yes. All right. I think before we start, why don't we have a quick greetings with our audience? A quick hi, who you are.
Yeah.
Let's start with you, maybe David.
Okay.
Normally ladies first, no?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for having someone on this panel. It really means a lot to have part of these conversations. And hi, everyone. I'm Penny Huang. I am the Sustainable Strategy Director at Xinbang Electronics based in Taipei, Taiwan. And my background is industrial engineering and market research. Which means I came into these roles by the lens of the system thinking and the market behavior, not just the communication. And that's shape how I think about what Xinbang does, not just the manufacturer, but we already part of this ecosystem. And by the way, I am triathlete. I do cycling.
Great,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Woo. All right, then I guess Sebastian.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sebastian. Yeah, I've seen it. I'm from ZF. And I also founded the Move Plus Accelerator. And beside all those professional activities, I also like to cycle for sure. I have a gravel bike since 10 years, one of a Taiwanese company, Trek. Yeah,
okay.
Really great one.
Yeah. Great, finally.
Yeah, so hello everybody, I'm David. Working for Decathlon since 11 years, working directly for the marketplace business as a business developer, so at least working from Germany to outside of Europe also, and working with brands, resellers, and external partnerships here since 5 years. And great that you mentioned what sport are you doing, because normally in the introduction from Decathlon we are talking about sport and what we are doing. Yeah. So originally I'm coming from soccer, but as I'm getting older, step by step, I moved to cycling, and also due to my son, so that's why cycling is also a passion since a few years.
Great, thank you. And how many of you are familiar with marketplace of Decathlon? Well, I'm sure everybody knows Decathlon.
Yeah.
Yes? How about for marketplace? Everybody knows what that is and what that does? Okay, maybe it's worthwhile for you to share with us. We talk about ecosystem building. Decathlon is this really global sports kind of like giant leaders. How does marketplace actually help you in becoming an ecosystem player? What does it mean for the whole group?
Yes, as I heard, marketplace is not for everybody a word. Maybe one sentence before. So marketplace business is at least, we call it 1P and 3P business. 1P business is our products, our own brands that we are working with. And the 3P business is the 3P partnership. So the brand, we, and the customer. And we are selling products from other companies or from other brands inside Decathlon. So to make it clear for everybody, there are some other marketplaces outside there with the A in the beginning or something. So, for example, and this is what we are doing, curated for sport, actually. In general, it's a movement for us because we are changing. So since 45 years, we are distributing or we are producing products with our own brands. And since 5 years, this topic is changing for us because we are looking outside of Decathlon and not only producing products, but we work with other companies, with other brands, with resellers, and selling those kind of products. So this is a pretty new thing for us.
Wow. Well, I guess usually for big companies, they tend to want to own everything, and they want to basically kind of do everything themselves. But I guess for marketplace, providing a platform where other brands can also sell on Decathlon's channels, I think that is actually something definitely a breakthrough for you guys.
Yes, and it changed a lot. So it changed our website, it changed our whole ecosystem, what we are doing, and we are getting into a platform step by step. So now 5 years long, and but you can imagine if you start with 35,000 products, and now you have 400 to 500,000 products on your website, you have to manage that, and this is what we are working on, and yeah, step by step.
Yes, and then we're going to get into a lot of the insights and details. In addition to Marketplace, I think David is also pretty familiar with the acquisition, with you probably have read from the news, bike leasing company like EUROBIKE and also bike leasing. So second-hand bike and this different business model through different channels. So, but that's keep it there, and then we're going to get back to this. For Penny, for audience from Europe, Xinbang is probably a relatively new name, but then you have actually been in the cycling and mobility industry for quite some time. So can you first give a quick introduction for the audience who might not be familiar with Xinbang, who you are, and what do you do?
Yeah. Okay, Xinbang might be a new name here, so I give you, actually, yes, like Elisa said, we have in these e-bike industries quite some time, so I give you quick pictures to introduce who we are and where we are today. So Xinbang is a 37-year-old electronics system integrator, and we have over 6,000 employees, and we have 16 global locations and over 800 million euro in revenue last year. And we started as a connector and the cable assemblies. It's very much in the OEM worlds that Taiwan is known for. But the over past years, we have been on a journey to dip into the e-mobility space. So our journey has gone through 3 phases. And the first one is the manufacturers. And this is very pure consumer electronics, OEMs. We provide connectors and the cable assemblies, and we had cooperate with the Gogoro's, which is the first and the largest e-scooters brand in Taiwan, and we provide connectors and cable. We working on their battery swap systems, and from that moment we start to think that the hardware just the only part of this. So we start to see the whole system. And the entry into the second phase is Explorer, and we start working with Tier and Van Move. And we quickly realized and entering the e-bike to share mobilities in a serious way. We built a dedicated battery swap system units. So we started to ask ourselves, what's the role in this industry? So on the third phase, where we are now, now is an integrator. So from the e-bike to share bike to swap infrastructure, and we invested in Swappy, and that's make us become energy and the connectivities platform, and that layers connects the mobilities, energies, and cities together. So each phase taught us the previous one couldn't do, but we're still learning. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. So actually, many of you might be relatively more familiar with the Move. So back then, Xinbang used to be a manufacturing partner with them, and now basically transitioning into investing into, I believe, a German startups.
Yes.
And then we're going to also get into a little bit more in terms of how they actually work together. But before we do that, Sebastian, so ZF, people know that it's a global automotive powerhouse. And you used to be also quite big-ish in the cycling world with the ambition and all that. And in recent years, you decided to get out of that.
Yeah.
However, with the accelerator that you're building, you stay connected with energy and mobility innovation. Can you tell us what's Move Plus? What does it do?
Yes, sure, I can. So yeah, I started, just some personal history. I started in corporate innovation at ZF. And yes, normal corporate innovation, so you try to build products from the inside to the outside. But we realized that there are two misconceptions in this corporate innovation at the moment. The first one is it's really difficult for large corporations to bring out new products and new markets into the market. So really market those products, because you always rely on your internal structures, you always rely on your internal processes, which makes it really difficult to be fast, to be agile, to be flexible. And on the other side, we also realized that on the outside, in the outside market, in the startup world, there are much more promising ideas, and they are much more faster than we are. And so that was the main idea behind Move Plus, to build up an external entity outside ZF that can work together with startups on the one side, but on the other side is also able to provide the structure and infrastructure to spin off companies from ZF into the market. And at the end, and I really like the slide at the beginning, at the end it's a kind of an ecosystem approach. So we support internal innovation, we support internal teams that want to spin off, that want to go into the market, that want to use startup-like structures. And on the other side, we also open the way for startups to come into ZF, to find ways to work together with ZF. And that's what this Move Plus is about.
I see. And maybe practically speaking, how does it work? Is it physical, like startups need to go to certain places, or is it hybrid? Do you have like cohorts throughout the years, or is it like ad hoc applications?
No, it's a kind of hybrid format. So of course we have a facility in Friedrichshafen at Lake Constance, but most of the programs are virtual or hybrid format. At the end, when it comes to cooperation, of course, you need to meet people, to work together with people. So at the end, you need to be in person at our facilities. But most of the programs, normal startup accelerator programs, so we show the startups how they should work, we connect them with mentors, we build up the network, we bring them to events. So yeah, that's the normal work of an accelerator.
I see, great. Can I do a quick survey here? Any startup founders here? Oh, all right. Well, if you are working in the mobility and energy sector, you know who to talk to if you want to potentially get some resources from this giant German automotive powerhouse. Great, fantastic. So David, marketplace, it seems fantastic. And from my imagination, you must be seeing quite a lot of interesting signals from it, right? Because you probably can see a lot. In addition to your traditional distribution channels, now everything is online, you have data and so on and so forth. What's the most interesting or important signals that you think our audience will probably find valuable today?
Yes, so a lot. I cannot share everything, to be honest. But yeah, in general, so first we have a long way here, to be honest, and we started 5 years ago. As I already said, we started with zero on the marketplace business, and started with the first country at this moment, and yeah, now and today. So you're asking for a figure. We see it up here. We will be at the end of the year in more than like 25 countries in Europe nearly, and also in APAC we are existing with a marketplace, and so this is a huge thing for us. It's not in our roots, because in the past we did stores, and yeah, we founded e-commerce in 2009, but since 5 years the marketplace is really a new thing, and bringing external partnerships, brands, resellers together at one platform, and this is a big thing for us. And also 25% is the share what a marketplace has now in the e-commerce business, and this is pretty...
Wait, let me make sure that I hear that right.
Yes.
So out of all the cycling-related products from Decathlon, 25%-ish is from the marketplace now?
Yes, so...
It's a pretty big chunk.
Yes, for sure we have some like focus categories here, but cycling is since longer time a priority for us, but especially in some countries a bigger priority, as we do see in Germany. Since a few years, you already mentioned the investments we took in the past, but yeah, it's also coming out of the marketplace, because here we are working with external partners, which we haven't done so much before in the last decades.
I see. I don't see many Asian countries there yet. I don't see Taiwan in particular. So any recent plans to further expand into Asia?
Yes, we have it. So this is the European version here.
Ah,
so
okay.
yeah, we have 6 now. So we are in Taiwan, we are in Singapore, and some other ones. Also expanding to Canada this year. We are in Turkey also this year, and some other European ones. And yeah, step by step. But to be honest, it's a marathon. Yeah, it's not a sprint.
Yeah.
So
Yes, but great to see the growth, and it's really impressive that within a relatively short period of time, you have really built these channels that actually became a very meaningful platform to really bring in meaningful revenue for Decathlon. So amazing. And Sebastian, so I guess corporate innovation, this is a term that people love. However, it's kind of also a loaded term because it is very hard. Especially, I think anybody working at the corporates will understand. It's always about the KPI, and there's this framework. There's this kind of like ways to do things. The management in the beginning they might encourage you to hey just do things, but then after two years they're like okay where is the ROI? And then usually the innovation unit will just die. We have seen that over and over again. For someone who has been leading the innovation unit for such a long time, and now with this external or attached accelerator with ZF, what's the secret sauce? What do you think corporates should do, or how did you do it?
At the end, you always need to be innovative by yourself. You don't need to stay in your own processes, in your own ambitions that you have. You always need to think about new for yourself. So I think that's the most important thing. Don't rely on that what you have. Always question the status that you have, and you also need to do it as an innovator. So innovation is a term, but it also needs to be innovated. And I think I'm not sure if it's a secret sauce, but that's the way how we did it in the past. And that's also one of the reasons why we moved from the internal incubation to an external acceleration. It's just part of the journey, but just part of innovate ourselves. We're not sure what's coming next, so maybe we close the accelerator sometime, and we find something new. But at the end, I think that's the most important thing, to be curious by yourself, to find new things, innovation. Besides that, yes, sure, corporate innovation is not an easy part because you are in corporate structures, especially in a large company like ZF. You are in very established structures, and you always need to question those structures. You need to be very resilient at the end, personally. And you need, sometimes you also need to be quite bold to do things that are unexpected. But not sure if this is really the secret sauce, so that's just my opinion at the end.
Any tips in terms of, like sometimes maybe you need a longer time frame for something meaningful to really flourish. Maybe sometimes you need quite a bit of resources and maybe more budgets than what the corporates will offer to make things happen. Any tips around that?
You need a lot of friends inside the organization. I think that's the most important thing, and these friends can be in the board of management. These friends can be in the factories and the production. You need a lot of friends to work with because you work quite unusual, and you need friends that are also willing to work unusual and do the extra mile and the extra step and do things outside the process. And I think that's really important to have a lot of friends.
How about any sort of like creative financial structure that you might have seen to really enable some innovation that takes place?
Yeah, we tried a lot, different things. Corporate venture capital, I think it's important to have it. We had it in the past, we don't have it today. But you also have other sources of financing, and I think there's one slide in the back.
We can see that.
That we can show.
Here?
So yes, you also can use existing venture capital from external venture capital firms, and you can also combine different sources of financing into one common finance product. So public funding combined with venture capital, combined with strategic partnership could be one way to finance internal innovation, to find also to finance spin-offs of a company. But again, it's not easy. It's need to be proven, and your best friend sits also in the financial department of your company. So you will always need him.
Yeah,
or
so
her.
I guess two tips that I'm hearing. One, make a lot of friends so that you make things really easier. And two, try to be creative, find outside resources as well. So maybe partner with external VC funds or public sector so that you basically pull the resources together. And for Penny, so at Xinbang, sometimes you basically partner with external, like startups as a manufacturer. Sometimes, also invest into them. How do you decide when to do what?
Let me start with the reality of Taiwan's manufacturing industry, because most consumer electronics companies, including Zenban, not long ago, are quite conservative about working with the startups, because there is a fear on both sides. Like the startup may be worried about that the manufacturers only copy their ideas, and the manufacturing worry about that the startups won't survive long enough to be worth the investment. So the most partnerships only stay transactional. But Zenban made a different choice. And we want to be there on the first day. We want to have skin in the game when things still uncertain. And there's more like traditional contract manufacturers has to wait. Like wait the market to generate demands, or wait the customer to place an orders. They are always reacting. But through that, the investing and co-developing with partners, we can be proactive. We can to help create demands for ourselves and for our strategy partners. So instead of waiting to show up. And take Swabi, and we have Swabi's colleagues here. Hi. Yeah, and they are Berlin-based company, building battery swaps stations for the last mile deliveries in European cities. So through these partnerships, I think there is more about that. We also connected with Ring, which is the internal startups mobility system, and working on their next generation mobility systems. So through this partnership, I think the ecosystem grows, that one trust relationship leads to the next, I think. Yes.
Yeah, I think some of you might be able to relate, because a lot of consumer electronics OEMs, players in Taiwan, at least in Asia, a lot of time they're relatively conservative when it comes to investing directly into startups. But usually, when they work with startups, only with the manufacturing relationship, it's very transactional, as Penny mentioned. And very often, if the startup fails, then obviously everything kind of falls apart. Even if the startup makes it in the end, becomes a unicorn, then very often if you don't have a stake in the game, skin in the game, then you also don't enjoy the upsides. So I think by investing into startups, not only can you co-create in a more concrete way, because then you have more incentive to create that demand together. So it's a win-win situation in many cases. So really a great example. And now, after you finish your water, David, so on the marketplace, you have a lot of products, not just bikes, right?
Yes.
What's particularly hard about selling bicycle-related products on your marketplace?
Yes, and so as you mentioned, it's not only bikes. So in the past we said we have 100 sports there on our website. So it's from fishing to trekking to camping to cycling to ice skating to nearly everything what you can see. If you have children, you know it, the story. And the special thing about cycling is, so especially about parts or bike, it's not a t-shirt. So if you order a t-shirt, you order it in S, M, L, and XL, and you know, okay, yeah, the size is maybe okay. I love how it's looking like. So the design is great and everything. I will try it and I buy it. Okay, if it's not fitting, I send it back, and it's pretty easy. So the consumer situation. For a bike, we all know there's a lifetime of a bicycle. Yeah, you buy it, or you lease it in Germany, or in general, and some people they sell their car for that. So they're using the bike for daily usage to bring the children to school, for commuting, or everything else. So it's a very important thing for our customer, and it has to work, and it has to be perfect, in a perfect shape. And what comes out of that, you need service. So for a shoe or for a shirt, you don't need a service. So without service in the cycling business, it's very hard. So this is what we are doing since a long time. So as you know, or some of you know, we have some service solutions in our stores for all our products. So for tents, for SUPs, for all the sports we are providing, we have a service solution. And as I said, for a bike, which is really important for some people using it daily, on a daily basis, we have to have solutions for that for sure. So we have our service points in our stores, and we also have service centers. We have to have a short lifetime or short work time to bring the bike back for the customer, and that he can use it again. So this is one of the most important things, I think, and it's an investment product. Yeah, and out of that, this is what we think where the future will be. So without service, without the shop solutions, we should be near at the customer. It's a problem. So we cannot only be online.
So other than
that's
products,
not possible.
Yes, you have to really take into services and also all of this surrounded things that consumers.
Ecosystem. Yeah, it's an ecosystem.
Yes. Is that also why you, well, I guess I know that you were not directly responsible for the acquisition with Rebike and also bike leasing, but then I guess what are you seeing from the marketplace side in terms of that involvement with the ecosystem?
Yes, at least, so Rebike and bike leasing is a special case in Germany, or a special case coming out of the leasing situation. It also came due to the marketplace, because we tried something new, because Rebike was on the marketplace first. And so this is the situation where it has been. They moved to different countries as well, and due to that, the next steps happened. So this is also what Sebastian said. So try something different, and not always in the like the way looking like the last 30 years. You have to try something new, and being consistent on that. So
Rebike, initially it was part of the marketplace.
Yes.
And then maybe with the connections and relationship, then eventually actually led to the acquisition of the startup.
Yes.
Okay. Really look forward to further developments, because I think it's still relative. This year, the acquisition took place.
Yes.
I believe. Yes. Fantastic. And I want to change gear a little bit to move into cross-industry learning, and also what can we take away from this? With Penny,
Yes.
your journey, especially with the bicycle and mobility sector, hasn't really been a straight line, as we went through already, from the move to now, kind of like different ways. How did you manage to stay in the game? Because we actually saw that many companies, they came in, especially during COVID, and then many of them actually left already. So can you share a little bit in terms of how Xinbang managed to still evolve and still be here at EUROBIKE?
I think the honest answer is that something didn't work out, and we ask ourselves one question: did the problem goes away? But the answer was always no. So what kept us in this industry is because we are already generally part of this ecosystem. So not just observing it, but investing in it literally and strategically. So when you have built relationship with the company trying to solve these problems, you don't walk away when things get harder. So, and the problem we are trying to deliver is very clear. How do you think like a sustainable urban mobility actually work at scale in real cities? So that that question led us somewhere bigger. So from where we sit, I am a little bit exciting. It's the most exciting shift happening is from the move from the product thinking to infrastructure thinking, because I think that the hardware is just only part of it, and the most real opportunity and the challenging is the infrastructure layer. Like where do you charge, or where do you swap, or how does the energy flow through the cities to support that the zero emissions mobility at scale. So that's are not the product questions; they are city questions. So when we enter that the e-bike space, we quickly realized that the hardware is just part of it. Like what we have learned is most city was designed around these, so like the roads or the intersection or the logic of urban space. All of this is built for the gas-powered vehicles. So when you're trying to deliver that sustainable mobility at scales, you are not replacing a product. You are telling a city to rethink how it can be designed. Yes. So I think as an infrastructure integrator, Simban, we starting looking at this from a city planning perspective, because I think what we have learned is we are trying to figure like the partnership with urban planning, academic institution in urban planning, because if you want to help that the city to make the better infrastructure decisions, you need people who really realize that, understand that the cities actually work, not just vehicles work. So. And that's exactly why we are building a portfolio of partners around different areas, like the picture that we have, that the alternative energies, including hydrogen's energy, and we have collaborate with the Nexalin Energy from Taiwan, and with a battery swap station, we have Swabi, and for the mobility system, we have Enerings, and also we have the academics partners in urban planning. So in the mix, we're not just building at the ecosystem, we are building a new way of thinking about what a city can look. Yeah.
Yeah, so from product and manufacturing only to this whole ecosystem and infrastructure play, and creating your own portfolios or partners,
Yes.
so that you can enable that. And I guess you're still around because the problem that you're trying to solve is still there, I guess, these days with climate change and all that. And Sebastian, so coming from the automotive industry, what's the learning that you have, especially with the bicycle industry? Any things that you would like to share? I remember when we first met, I think one question I asked you was that the fact that ZF now kind of like reduced the involvement with the e-bike ecosystem directly, was it because the market was just too tough, or what was the contributing factors, and what lessons can you actually share?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'm not sure if I can share all of it. But first of all, I really like the Shimbong approach, because one of the reasons that we also founded Move Plus is that we also had a vision of an integrated mobility with infrastructure. So the reason why it is mobility and energy is that we have seen that mobility, the market of mobility and the market of energy will grow together. You need infrastructure especially for e-mobility. You need infrastructure, and you need to be part of the infrastructure, and also the car needs to become part of your own everyday's infrastructure. So that was one of the visions that we described, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. And then one of the reasons why we founded Move Plus, because we want to build up this ecosystem outside of ZF, because ZF is, at the end, it's a manufacturing company and want to produce products. And maybe that's also one of the reasons why we step out of the cycling business, that the cycling market at the moment is not large enough for us. So we cannot sell enough pieces into the market. And on the other side, our biking products are really great, but maybe they are a little bit too over-engineered. And maybe that's all one of the reasons why the automotive manufacturers or the automotive suppliers really struggling in this biking market out beside Bosch, but all the others really struggling in that market because the product that they produce are really great, but they're sometimes too over-engineered and maybe too safe, too secure, too serious ready than it's needed in the biking market.
Yeah, the keyword I'm getting here is over-engineering, and I think for a lot of you, especially in the e-bike markets, probably can relate to that. So the consumers really need a new generation of powers, motors that's like even more powerful and so on and so forth. Some of them may need that, but then the reality is that I think these days different companies, like we just try to come up with more and more and more, and sometimes cost more. And then, but then, is the market ready for that, or is there a real market for that? I think that's probably something that's worthwhile thinking about. And by the way, for those the answers that you might not be able to disclose publicly here, I guess at the breakout session, feel free to get him to talk to you more about that. And last question before we wrap, David. So you now see basically across from, you have your own suppliers because Decathlon have your own Decathlon products in the bike industry. You sponsor racing teams. You also now have marketplaces. You have your retail shops, obviously. So you really have this wide spectrum of activities. Any cross-learning that you see with this?
How long do we have time?
3 minutes, but we still have to wrap up.
Which will be hard for me. No. So yeah, as you said, many possibilities, many insights, many informations. Also today, the cycling market, we have the normal customer, but the normal customer today is buying a bike or leasing a bike for 10,000 euro. So this is sometimes the question about over-engineering, or do I need those kind of product? Yes or no? I don't know. We have those kind of information for sure, but it's useful. So every customer feedback is useful for us. So even on the marketplace, even our customer in the store, even from the pro cyclist team, because they are doing it, as we all see it on TV, very hard and every day and many kilometers. So every feedback is good for us, and at least we can use that for sure for the whole ecosystem of Decathlon, for our products, for the marketplace as well, and so on and so on. But to wrap up, at least the customer is deciding. So this is the most important thing for us. So we are giving him like a menu,
or
so
her.
you can choose, or her, sorry, a menu, or a buffet. And at least the customer is deciding which design do I like, which brand do I like, which price point do I need, which technicity do I need, and so on and so on. And this is what we are doing actually. And so this is the most important thing for us, I think. The customer is at the end the person who decides what he or she is needing.
Yeah, so listen to the markets. And
Yes.
finally, so now we have 3 speakers from 3 different corporates and very different cultures and also sectors. If you were to work with one or both of the other 2 speakers, any interesting collaboration or ideas that you think, given that we're here on this cross-industry collaboration topic, any ideas that you might have?
I think that the interesting part is not choosing one. And it's what happened when all 3 of us work together, okay? Because a smart urban city needs apps, technology dApp, and Decathlon's consumer rich, and Simbon's infrastructure platform. So take any one of Sao. The vision is much harder to deliver. But let me try to say something specific about Decathlon, because I think there is new insights. Because I think the most valuable about Decathlon is not just the marketplace, it's the store density. Yeah, so I know that there is a Decathlon store, one store in the mid-sized European cities, right? So for that is Decathlon knows what and the where that people are buying, and Simban knows that where like the people actually riding and where the swap stations gaps are. So put those two together. I think this we both sides can make a smarter decisions for that because like Decathlon can optimize its store strategies and Simbang can know where the next swap stations go. So it's a win-win, I think. So that's the conversation I would like to have. David, it's not can we list on your marketplace? We can try something new, that you say. And it's like we can define together what a complete e-bike city experience can look like to build it. So that's the conversation worth having. And with Sebastian's, with the ZAF Move Plus accelerators, I think there is a possibility like I found exciting because you work with a lot of startups. So, you know, that Simban is working with the startups. So I think that the interesting and more exciting is if we can meet the startups through ZAF, and maybe there will be the ecosystem partners next. So that's
Great. All right.
we can work together.
We're going out of time a little bit, but any further thoughts from the two gentlemen?
I completely agree. I just
Send the
One-
startups that way.
Yeah,
and
right.
maybe they will invest.
now one challenge that we would face with working together with Decathlon is that we are a B2B company and we don't have the B2C viewpoint, and they are completely different somehow. And I think that would be some of the challenge that we have. I know we would overcome this, but it's different to work in the B2B area than in the B2C.
David?
In general, I don't have a perfect idea today, maybe tomorrow, but in general, as I said, think about new opportunities. It's a little bit generalistic what I'm saying, but think about new opportunities, open your silo, don't think in silos, and yeah, be open for partnerships and collaborations. So this is the most important thing today because yeah, we all want to be there tomorrow with our companies or in the future, and that's the main thing.
Great. So maybe you don't have the answers yet, but at least I hope that this is the beginning for you to think about, you know, the possibilities out there. So with that, let's put our hands together to thank three of our amazing speakers. Thank you. All right. Woo. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess now, how are we doing? We have another one. And with cross-industry collaboration, the next combo, they actually started working with each other already. So now we're going to invite them to the stage and to learn about how they made it happen and what kind of inspiration can we take potentially from that. So the next panel is about when industry, capital, and startups build together, what would happen? With that, let's invite our speakers onto the stage. First, we have our startup representative, Paul from Retire. Welcome. And we have Renee from Fundraiser, our investor representative. Welcome. And Vanessa from Victoria, from the industry. All right. Thank you. Whew. All right. How are we doing?
Very well.
Great.
It was a nice first round, so I appreciate it. I enjoyed. I hope also you enjoyed.
Great. And with that, maybe a quick greetings with our audience. Why don't we each say hi and maybe a quick one sentence, something about yourself.
Yeah, shall I start? So first of all, thank you, Elisa, for bringing us together. I think this is a great opportunity also for us. And hello to everyone. My name is Vanessa ten Hoff, and I'm responsible for marketing and innovation at Victoria. And Elisa asked me before to share something personal, so please forgive me, Elisa. You know, I still will share what is dear to my heart. So for me, and also at Victoria, it's very important to put the consumer always at the center. But then I also keep my promise. I'll share something personal for afterwards, you know, to have a icebreaker. My favorite dish is sticky rice with mango.
From Thailand.
Yes,
From Thailand.
From
Where you have
Thailand.
a factory at.
Exactly, exactly.
Fantastic. All right, Renee.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for joining this session. I grew up in the Netherlands, so if you grow up in the Netherlands, you go to high school and university by bike. So when I finished my university, I told myself I am never going to bike anymore, and I bought my car with my first salary I made with my first job. But I have come full circle. So afterwards, I joined the bike industry. I became an avid gravel cyclist, and I'm also an avid commuter. So that is my little secret. I started my career in Philips. I worked in electronics, in semiconductor and software. I have also been working in the lighting industry when there was a transition from light bulbs to LED. So I've been inside the industry. I've seen what happens when there's a disruptive new technology. In 2007, I acquired 3T, in iconic Italian parts, bike parts brand, transitioned to a gravel bike brand, sold the company in 2022, stayed another year as a CEO, and in 24 I created Fundraiser, together with 2 other ex-bike entrepreneurs, Gerard Vrome, the founder of Cervelo, Andy Ording, the founder of Zip. They all sold their companies too, and we created Fundraiser, and we invest in technology companies in the industry.
Thank you, Renee. Very good introduction. Maybe we'll have to share more hear more from Vanessa. Paul, how about you?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Paul. Great seeing so many faces here. I'm the CEO and founder of Retire. I have a background in product development and chemical engineering, which ultimately motivated me to find an industrial solution to introduce new materials to the tire industry, which led us to the point that we're at now, where we in Retire are the first manufacturer of tires to ever have non-rubber pneumatic tires.
Great. All right. And I'm going to come back to you, Vanessa. And maybe with this question, you can also share a little bit more about your background. So not a lot of bicycle companies have this position, Chief Innovation Officer. And you're the Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer of Victoria. How does it happen? There was like an open position and a headhunter found you, or how did it work? And why did you decide to join a cycling tire company?
Yeah, actually, it was a call that I got, and I think the company was looking to bring consumer centrism, to the place, and also Vittoria already was a company which had great innovation. They had excellent expertise and people who are basically spending their lifetime on tire development, on materials, on manufacturing, and also on cycling. But they didn't have a development or an innovation team. So what they wanted to do is to make sure that innovation is not just about improving products, but it's really fully leveraging the full know-how that is already inside of the company and creating a system. So my role was creating a bridge and creating a system to create meaningful experiences and benefits and products for the consumers. And I think to share a little bit about my background, so before I spent almost all my career in the appliances industry. And then I always say I was super lucky because I had the chance to work half of my career on the consumer side, so branding and marketing and sales. And then the other half of the career, then if you want to afterwards, in the breakout session, I can share more about it. I actually was working on the technical side. So I was at a certain point responsible for a business unit, so for engineering, costing, quality. And I think exactly that was also what thought when I saw the project and the request, which I thought I can do really well. I can contribute to what they are trying to do, and bring those two together and bring the consumer really into the product development and into the innovation.
We're going to go into how exactly did you build that innovation engine internally to enable all of this. But before that, you mentioned that now you're kind of like a bridge in between your internal kind of like companies, especially with the end consumers, and how do you have that framework to enable more of that? And Renee, you yourself is a bridge as well. In addition to bridging people like this too, you used to be on the industry side as an owner of 3T, and now on the capital side as the founder of Fundraiser. So comparing with a traditional VC investors, like a financial investors, you also evaluate, reviews probably thousands of deals every year. What difference do you see, especially with your industry experience?
Well, maybe a funny example, concrete example is for Bluebrake. We invested in the company in Italy. They make ABS units for two-wheelers. And we were co-leading this round with Algebris. That's a large venture capital fund from Italy. They have 100 million in their fund. And we decided to co-lead, so I sat together with the partner of Algebris and he said, okay, let's start the due diligence. What do you think we should do? And the fund, the Algebris, said, okay, we need to hire Deloitte and we need to review the business plan. And our reaction was, no, we are going to talk to the potential customers. So we were very complimentary in the end, but what we have, from our experience, talked with a lot of startups, we have seen that the big challenge in this industry is to get into the market. This is a little bit of a specific industry where you need to talk the language to be able to be successful. So our focus in due diligence is very much about how can we get this innovation into the market. And it was funny to see that the traditional venture capitalists, they don't look at that much. They look much more at the numbers, which for us are, the numbers are never going to happen for sure. If they are either going to be better or worse, but it's very hard to project something 5 years in the future. But it's very important to get started in the market, and that is where we focus our due diligence on.
And so get real, get the actual sales, the actual customers, and then the numbers will follow.
Right.
Because that's what I'm getting. Paul, so you started with a very real issues in Norway when you were still a university student. And Retire, you started in 2015, and so far you have raised over 12.5 million, or roughly 12.5 million. How did you start from like a student startup, and now it's an industrial company with institutional investors and so on and so forth? What was the journey and what was the pivotal points for you to make that switch?
Well, yeah, it's a long story to go from there to here, but in essence, Retire has a legacy of making innovative products. And coming up with good products typically demands of you to understand a market need, and that's where it's all started for Retire. So we were at campus in Norway. There was transitional challenges, you might say, for bikers between like winter and summer. So we wanted to bring to market products that could assist that with interchangeable winter-summer surfaces. And as the company grew over the years, we continued to really challenge status quo, always being an outsider, making new novel products, patented products. And as the company matured and as we found these new product solutions, we found ourselves in situations where not only did we have to innovate on the product side, but we also had to innovate on the manufacturing side. So when you have really novel products, you can't really go to a manufacturer and have them produce it for you. There's too much new in regards to the product itself. So after a few years, we found ourselves spending 80% of our resource and our time on designing new manufacturing equipment to bring our innovative products to market, to be efficient, to be cost efficient. And over many years of doing so, of always being an outsider, of always thinking outside of the box, finding inspiration from new industries in order for us to produce our novel products, we ultimately ended up understanding that these new production methods that we had discovered to make these modular tire, more niche-oriented products could be the foundation of something very new in the tire industry. And we began a new journey at that point to double down on that concept, to reimagine what tire production could be, and to use the type of innovations that we already had implemented on the production side, and that culminating to where we are today with a factory that shares no equipment with the industry as a whole. We have taken enormous inspiration from other industries and found solutions, novel proprietary solutions on how to leverage them for tire production.
Yeah, I think the key inspiration I'm getting from this is that it all started with a problem. And I think it's the entrepreneurial spirits that you basically try to solve this problem. And along the way, you realize that you just need to make it more industrial in order to keep moving forwards. So I guess that's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And now, I want to reconstruct the deal a little bit. So for those of you who may not be familiar, the reason that I invited 3 of them here was because earlier this year, I think it was announced on the press release that there was this 3-way collaboration in between Victoria, Fundraiser, and Retire. And obviously, Fundraiser invested into Retire with the industrial collaboration with Victoria. So when I read about this, I was like, this is brilliant. Our industry needs more of this. So we have to invite 3 of them here to let us know how that happened. Can we reconstruct the story a little bit? How, like, Renee, did you first come across Retire and then convince Victoria to also get in? What happened?
Well, we actually looked first at Retire and then we decided not to invest. It was a year earlier. It was then Stijn, the CEO of Vittoria, he was approached by you for about producing tires for Vittoria. So Stijn flew to Oslo and he visited the factory, and on his way back to the airport he called me saying, "Hey René, I remember you, I know that you didn't want to invest a year ago, but now they have figured it out. Now it's time to look at it again." And we have a good collaboration with each other, so that's when we decided to have another look at it, and we went to see the factory. It was really impressive. And then we said, okay, we are interested to invest, but then we would like to see a collaboration with Vittoria. And then that was our condition to invest, because one of the things that we believe Retire needed other than capital was also access to a credible tire maker to get market input to actually make tires not only for children bikes that they were doing in the beginning, but also for more commuting bikes where the big market is. And then I think we acted as the translator in between Vittoria and Retire to try to make that collaboration happen. And I'm very happy that it happened. And I think the reason why that happened was that both Vittoria and Retire were open to listen to what they actually wanted to get out of it and what the other one wanted to get out of it. Because in the end, it's very easy to kill a deal. It's very hard to make something happen, and now there's a collaboration which is beneficial for both companies, I'm convinced, and of course also for us as an investor.
Great. And you mentioned Stan, the CEO and chairman of Victoria. I had the pleasure of visiting the headquarters of Victoria in Italy just last week, and I was very impressed in terms of how they built the campus, the park, and so on and so forth. I remember Stan once told me if Victoria were to be challenged by, it would not be with an existing incumbent. It would be by a startup, probably like Retire. And I think that's a very strong statement. So for Vanessa, can you share a little bit with us, because not every corporates have this kind of mentality. So when you started building this innovation mentality and framework within Victoria, what exactly did you do? Like, especially for people who might want to take this home and start building something internally, what can they start doing, like micro steps?
Yeah. Well, first of all, maybe I comment on the fact that Stein said this, because it's, I think, quite striking, and it shows also a certain amount of humility. And there is something, I think, important below, that very often big corporations, and I'm coming in the back, in the past from big corporations or established companies, they just look at the competition. They just look at, what is the competition doing, and they forget to look at other technologies and also changing consumer needs, because also ultimately we do it for the consumer, and they are changing. So very often, what is then missing is that focus, to do something for the better, and many times the ideas are already there. But then the mechanisms to put those ideas into actions, those are missing, of what we're doing. And I think in innovation, or in order to bring innovation to the company, you need to have innovation capacity inside. This sounds very, very simple, but it's very true. So people need to be able to have the time to look into opportunities And then they also need to have the resources, the technical resources then to evaluate them. And I think also it's very important, so usually corporations and startup, they work at different speeds. So it is fundamental that the company allows to have parallel tracks that for those innovative products and innovative projects, we can work at startup speed. And I think also leadership needs to be comfortable with a certain amount of uncertainty. So that is very, very important. And as said, so companies usually don't lack ideas. They lack the capacity, or they lack the organization to bring the ideas into action. So I think if you have those, if you can manage to have those 4 steps, you will have a big opportunity that innovation will happen in your company.
Yeah, allow time and allow uncertainties. Easy concept, but in reality, very difficult. So great job. And for Paul, so for this most recent round, the lead investor was actually HashBlue. It's not a typical investor that people from the bicycle industries are familiar with. Were you surprised? And how did that happen? How did you manage to actually get someone who traditionally is not affiliated or associated with the bicycle industry to invest into your company and also act as the lead investor?
Well, innovators typically know that you pull in inspiration from neighboring industries, or you go even further. You pull inspiration for technical solutions from wherever you can find it. And I was happy to see that there were so many entrepreneurs here in the crowd, because I think innovative leaders and companies typically forget that if you have a disruption in an industry, there might be spillover effects into other industries that you haven't really realized yet. And in the case of HashBlue, what really took place was that we, back in 2024, demonstrated a tire where we had built that tire using novel new sustainable materials. We had recycled plastic from the ocean. We had algae. And HashBlue, for those that don't know them, they do aquaculture materials, aquaculture industries. So we landed on their map by proving that for the first time you can really integrate aquaculture materials or ocean-derived materials into tires. And if you think about it, tires and the ocean is already connected. Like, we are a major source of pollutant to the ocean. So what can we do about that? Well, we obviously can use better materials. We can work towards biodegradability. We can do a lot of things. But we can also interact with aquaculture industries, and they can provide materials to us. So there can be a synergy. And HashBlue identified that the tire industry represents enormous consumption of materials. So if we can connect these 2 dots, that's beneficial for both parties, and also then for other investments that they have done. So entrepreneurs should always, even when it comes to funding, think outside of the box. Go outside of the standards. There is opportunity there, and even also for corporate investments, looking at alternative businesses that might be interested in some of the solutions.
And I think that's a perfect example for the bike investor may not call themselves a bike investor. So get outside of this cycling world, and then there will be other possibilities. And now we want to get into some hard truths. So everybody loves innovation, sounds great, but in reality, I want to get some advice from you for our audience in terms of what can either startups or corporates actually do. Maybe I'll start with you, Renee. So what's the biggest translation gap that you're seeing in between people like this two? Not necessarily them, but in general, when you work with thousands of startups every year.
Now, I think the first is in the cycling industry. There are very little acquisition done based on a technology reason, right? I mean, if you look at the tech industry, there's a lot of big companies, they just acquire any interesting technology. They even don't have any sales, but they know that if they incorporate the technology in their bigger company, they can scale that very fast. And in the bike industry, there's almost none of these deals. And there's a lot of opportunities out there, actually. And that would really accelerate innovation, because if bigger companies would acquire certain technology, bring it faster to market in the channels that they have, that would then also attract more talent to start companies in this industry. So that is one thing that I hope that we can develop over the next couple of years. And the other thing is that I think Stijn is an exception of how he looks at startup new technology, because he actually went out there himself. But what I see in most larger companies, they delegate the searching for new ideas to the lowest ranking product manager. So a startup has to convince that layer first, and then the boss and the boss, before they go all to the top level. And that is a real missed opportunity for those companies, but for the industry as a whole. We have a lot more opportunity to make this industry much more attractive if there is just more, if we can accelerate innovations faster in the industry, and that requires C-level involvement in the selection of the right startups/technologies.
Yeah, really important points actually, because I guess there are not a lot of stands from in the industry, and we probably need more of that. And if you're a business owners, it's probably worthwhile for you to think about, hey, maybe it's something that you need to more kind of like proactively do, so that with top-down kind of like decision making and also facilitation, it's more likely that things like this can happen. How about you, Vanessa? Like, you probably also work with quite a few startups, and also some worked, some probably didn't. Any advice that you would give for startups that might want to work with industry players from the cycling industry?
That's a good question. So I think the most important point actually is, looking for the common ground. First of all, understanding how startups and corporations or more organized companies work differently. So usually in bigger corporations, processes are different. They are more complex. Time takes longer. And very often they are underestimated, I think, by startups. So they come with a great idea, and they maybe even have a prototype, but from a prototype to then really building millions of reliable products, there is a huge difference. And I think that is important to understand. And then on the other side, also to underline what you bring. So if you're a startup, you bring creativity, you bring speed, you bring new ways of thinking, helping to think out of the box, helping to see problems from a different perspective. And I also think that collaborations are working well. When you appreciate the other, and when you know what each one brings to the table, and then you can find the common ground. So I think I would encourage to see what can we do for the better, and then again, what's the common ground? The common ground is the consumer. So we want to create better experiences for the consumer, and if you focus on that, and if you focus on what can we do for the better, and where are we complementary, so what can we do, what can we bring to the table, and what can you bring to the table? That is important. And then I think there are two more things that are important. So the first one we said, so there has to be a real problem at the base, so the real problem that is solved. Then the complementarity, and then the one final thing is also, so you have to create a certain ambient or way of dialogue to create trust, because innovation inevitably, there will be a lot of uncertainty, so it's not going to be all perfect. And if there is no trust, so if you cannot create, the base to say yes, we can collaborate together, then everyone will just protect themselves, and not a lot is created. So I think those things are important. So when you reach out, have very clear in mind what you bring to the table, and what problem is it that you solve, and how can I build this trust base, which is important. So it is important in order to collaborate, and then adventure into innovative thoughts.
Build the trust. And also, I think one key thing is that if you have the common ground, in this case, what consumers actually need and want, and then basically when in doubt or when in conflict, just come back to that and just see what would be better for the consumers, and then do that together. If you have both that collective common belief, then I guess that's a lot of time that will make things a lot easier. And Paul, you didn't say take no for the first time, and eventually now this great things happen. And I'm curious. So beautiful collaboration with Victoria, but at the same time, obviously there are other tire companies out there. As a startup, how do you protect your technology? How do you remain independent while at the same time working with great partners like Victoria?
Well, there's obviously going to be a need for balance. And like was said in the last panel, these collaborations between a startup and a more corporate company typically revolves around something transactional. And what was important for us was, and especially looking from the startup point of view, was the value add along that journey that we were going to be having. And finding that common ground is what made us succeed in having this collaboration. And as entrepreneurs, you are obviously very protective. Like there's like the IP that we have in our instance, for example, is the value of the company, and you also have a lot of opportunity commercially, but you might not intuitively understand that you will not grasp all of that at once, and that is also how you can have various collaborations where you generate these opportunities together. So as maybe a suggestion for entrepreneurs is to understand that typically for a startup you are operating on very short timelines, while the corporates and the incumbents, they have long horizons. They think much longer ahead. So you can find benefits in that, and you can try to a bit divide it, see what you can do for yourself and where you can really leverage the benefit of such a collaboration. For example, in distribution and in technology development.
Great, thank you. And so, Renee, we started the session with, I guess, the old capital market story is over. From your perspectives, especially now, you are, in my opinion, one of the most active investors, if not the most active investors, in the micromobility and cycling-related world. In your opinion, what do we need to do as an industry to either bring more investments and investors into the space, or do you think we're still missing something, and what can we do collectively so that innovation has more capital to flourish, and so on and so forth?
No, I think there's specifically room for more tech investors, I think, in the industry. And in order to attract them, we just need to get this loop going of interesting innovation acquired by larger players, rolling it out quicker into the market, and etc. So that wheel needs to be start turning. And we need to then, of course, show with that, exits that generate value, right? I mean, that attracts capital right away. But I really would like to see that we are now probably the first venture capital fund investing focus on this industry. But we need more capital to really, bring all the innovation that's out there into the market. And for that, in order to unlock that, we need to be able to tap into the more, tech-focused investment funds, and we could get them. But we need to get this wheel running faster and bolder, probably.
Did you say tech-focused? Tech. Okay. So I guess again, cross-industry stimulation and inspiration, and get outside of cycling only, so that we can be more creative in terms of attracting outside capital. I'm looking at you, Paul. So any advice for people who are building hard tech or hardware startups, especially in this kind of climates when it comes to fundraising?
Well, I think it's just a sum of the usual suspects. So, in our case, we have gone the journey from early private investors to early funds, now to institutional investors. You would typically always start local, seeing what the opportunity there is, and go more and more international. And understanding that the company has different stages, and understanding the fit with the different investors, I think is important to have realism in finding the capital. On top of that, of course, founders should always be very interested in grant structures. It's important, especially for hardware. It's a capex heavy way forward for us. Hardware is hard, and a lot of these European or national grant structures are very important to find that needed funding to bridge between all the development work that is needed and ultimately the connection to the market.
Because in the case of Retire, I think for many years in the early stage, you rely on grants instead of diluting your equities to build your company.
Yeah, well, I mean, grants grow with the company. So there's, early days, small grants. I remember we got our first 5,000 euro grant. That was the first grant. And with that, we were going to change the world. So, I mean, these grants, they follow the company's trajectory forward. And in the early days, it's more of a necessity, right? So it's difficult to really give confidence to investors. And grants are typically there, especially for the early stage, to bridge that. And I just want to emphasize something with grants that's interesting also for founders, and that is the fact that many grants are now being really structured around collaboration. So finding customers and finding key partners, and you can really build solid funding through that as well. So, and that helps fuel the feasibility of your venture, just like this collaboration does. So look at grants with that type of structure would be my advice.
Great. I think that echo what Sebastian was talking about earlier. From the corporate side, be creative and look for either VC partners or public funding. But from the startup side, I think equally you can also be creative and then basically get all of the resources that you can get. Fantastic. Vanessa, to close up, any interesting or exciting projects that you're working on at the moment on the innovation side?
That question is a surprise. Yes, I think we have a wealth of incredible projects. So I'm really excited. I can't share them all, but what I can share is maybe the direction. So when I joined the company, one of the things that is dear to my heart, apart from having the consumer at the center, is sustainability. So it was really important for me to be able to work on sustainability. And it was one of the main questions for me. And at that time, Vittoria was not yet communicating so much about all the projects that they were doing, but the leadership is and was already very much committed. So you probably, or some of you might know the project we have done about the sustainable tire. And in that direction, we are continuing to work. So I think there are, and that's just one of many. So we have a wealth of projects that are coming. And it's for me wonderful, to be able to work in that environment that allows to do that.
Great, fantastic. Well, I really hope that in future sessions, when I want to look for examples with industry, capital, and startup three-way collaboration, there are more examples. And at the moment, well, if you know any, please let me know, because in my opinion, there are really not that many out there. And I really hope that this session will at least maybe inspire some of you to start thinking about the possibilities. Whether you are from the industry or you're an investor or a startup, there are potential ways to do things together. And with that, I want to thank all of our speakers. And let's put our hands together for them. Thank you.
Thank you.